Hello folks, welcome to Outdoors with Bud. I'm your host, Bud Fields. Hey, we're shooting out here in my backyard this evening. It's been kind of warm today. You can hear there's all kind of crickets and tree frogs in the background. Been pretty lucky. I kind of expected some of the neighbors to fire up the lawnmowers, but that's beside the point. Well, what I want to talk to you about today is one of the most commonly asked questions that I get is, okay, I shot my deer, I found it, what do I do now? Well, there's a lot of things you got to consider. If you're fortunate enough to get a shot at a deer and you harvest that animal, congratulations to you. What you need to consider is, like here in Indiana, our early archery season comes in October the 1st. That time of the year, it's not unusual for the outdoor air temperature to be 65, 70, 75, sometimes even close to 80 degrees. When you shoot a deer and it expires, it starts spoiling immediately on death. The longer that deer lays out there in the woods when it's hot out, it's going to start spoiling, and there's a good possibility you're going to lose a lot of your meat. Now, what I recommend doing, it's always kind of standard procedure that if you shoot a deer and you hit it, you give it at least a half hour to run off and expire. If you don't push that deer, it's going to go to first available thick cover, and it's going to lay there and try to recuperate itself and find out what's wrong with it. It don't know what happened. It was walking through the woods, and next thing you know, it gets shot. Okay, the deer's laying there and you find it. The best thing to do is start field dressing that animal immediately. Now, there's a lot of good information, videos and pictures on the internet of how to properly field dress a deer. Now, when you're field dressing that deer, there's things that you have to be mighty careful of, because the least little bit of a mistake, error on your part, can affect some of the meat. When you're making a field dressing, what you need to do is cut real carefully, and do not cut into the stomach, because if you do, all the stuff inside of the contents inside of the stomach is going to come out, and that's going to ruin some of your meat. Another thing you want to do is make sure you do not cut or puncture the bladder or the kidneys, because the urine will get in there and the urine will bother it too. One of the fastest things on a deer that will spoil the quickest is the windpipe. And sometimes a lot of guys won't even cut that because they don't even know what it is. If you run your hand up inside of the body cavity, up towards the lower part of the throat, you're going to feel something that's going to feel ribbed, just like the hose on a vacuum cleaner. That's the windpipe. What you need to do is pull that down as far as you can, reach up on the inside with your knife and cut that windpipe and pull it out. Turn the deer over on its stomach, bounce it up and down to get all the insides of it outside. Well, a lot of guys, of course, when you shoot a deer, you're proud of that deer, and rightfully so. I don't care if it's a buck, a doe, even a fawn, especially a kid or a woman that shoots their first deer. They're going to be proud of that deer. What I like to do is I will clean that deer up. A lot of times where I'm hunting is close to a creek. I might take a towel or something and wipe all the blood off of that deer. Then I will take some pictures of that animal in the woods, because it looks a little better in the woods. I will get that deer back to the truck as fast as I can. I'll put it on my critter getter, I'll get it back to the truck, I'll load it up, and I will take it to the processor normally within 1 hour after that deer has been shot. It's hanging in the processor place. If you're fortunate enough to know how and have access to all the utensils to process the deer yourself, that's great. I don't have that option, but less than a mile from where I deer hunt, there's a great processor up there. I just field dress my deer, I take the pictures of it, I check it in online with my cell phone. When I get my information on that deer, I take it immediately to the processor. They will take it off my vehicle or out of my vehicle. They will weigh it, tell me how much it weighs. They will get my check-in registration number on that animal. then they ask me, how do you want it? Then I tell them, like, I want the back straps. I want so much in burger. I want so much in chops, so much in steak, anything like that. And then I'm done with it. Then they call me a few days later. I go up and I pick up my deer. Now, with that being said, people ask me, why do some deer taste differently than other deer? Well, right here in Indiana, we've got an overabundance of cropland. The deer where I hunt here around my area, they feed all year on crops. They're feeding on soybeans, they're feeding on corn, they're feeding on turnips, they're feeding on everything, and they do browse. They do like to eat acorns, white acorns because they're sweet, red acorns when they can't find the white ones. And the deer that I shoot in Michigan has a completely different taste because in that area, that ground is so sandy, they cannot grow corn, they cannot grow beans. There was a guy bought some property up there. He decided he was going to plant corn. The deer didn't even know what it was. They were walking through it. He thought he was putting up a magnet for deer. Those deer up there, they feed on browse, anything in the woods. I've even seen them in late December eat the bark off of the tree. The meat off of that deer is going to taste completely different. It's just like beef. If you've got a farmer friend that he's got some cattle. He's got some cattle feeding over here. These cattle are feeding on, let's say they're just grass fed. He's got maybe 5 or 6 of them over here. They're grain fed. Even though they are on the same property, the deer over here feeding on grass is going to taste a lot different and a lot stronger than what the deer are over here that's feeding on the crops. But a lot of it too is when you get that deer, don't do like a friend of mine did. He hunted for years, never got a deer. Everybody was asking him, why spend your money on license and hunting gear? You never get a deer. He finally got one. He was so happy about it, he put that on the trunk or on the hood of his vehicle. He drove it and showed it to all of his buddies for 3 solid days. The heat from that motor was coming up underneath that hood, and it was just like that deer was sitting in a frying pan, so to speak. It started spoiling that meat. When he finally got that deer taken to the processor, you could smell that deer probably 30 foot away as you was walking up to it. Sure, he got his first deer. Sure, everybody got to see it, but he lost that deer because that deer was not edible. But the way you take care of that animal has a lot to do with how it's going to taste. And I got a segment I'm going to be doing here in the very, very near future. Some time ago, Pat Muncie, the publisher of the Kokomo Lantern, he interviewed my wife and he talked to her about how do you fix deer. So she's going to, I had her volunteer her services, and she's going to sit and talk to us about how she prepares some of the deer. And I'm not a cook. I can push a button on a microwave and that's about it. But to me, venison, I can eat it every meal. And I don't require a lot of marination or nothing like that. But the more care that you take of that deer after you harvest it, it's going to taste a lot better. When you find that deer, field dress it immediately, get it out of the woods as quick as you can, take your pictures, that way you're going to have it that you can show your buddies. Get it to the processor as soon as you can, because once you get it over there, they will skin that deer, they will cut it up and process it and everything for you. So I hope maybe that answered a little bit of your questions. I think deer meat is probably better for you than beef ever was. If you had a beef hanging on a hook here and a white-tailed deer over here, if you looked at the amount of fat content on the bodies, the white-tailed deer would be a lot leaner. There's very little fat on them, especially even later in the year when they're loading up for winter. So I want to thank you for letting me come into your homes. I hope you found this information useful. Like I say, there's a lot of good information on the internet that gives you a lot of good tasty recipes, and you can wait because my wife's a lot prettier than I am, and she can tell you how she fixes white-tailed deer. So I want to thank you. Good luck, and hey, we'll see you in the woods.